What a nice day for a dog walk. Beautiful. Huh, look at that. Check that out, Mac. You know, how long have these things been around? Like 20 years? And what do we really know about the humble USB cable?
Hello, this is Nikki, Dave's wife. We would like to thank you for watching My Own Devices. Making these videos keeps Dave busy and stops him from watching football and programs about spacemen and motor cars. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and share the videos whenever possible. Thank you.
USB, or Universal Serial Bus, came out in 1998, and it was designed to standardize connection of peripheral devices to personal computers. It carried the digital information to and from the device, as well as the electric power. That's why your mouse powers up when you plug it in. We call this type of connector USB-A because of this end. And did you know what the other end is called? USB-B. Its objective was that it would replace the slower and bulkier serial, parallel, and SCSI ports, and it was extraordinarily successful. I mean, USB now is ubiquitous in pretty much all things in the world of tech. And like most of you, I've bought many USB devices and cables over the past couple of decades. Computer printers, scanners, cameras, hard drives, mice, keyboards, and of course, until fairly recently, it was the primary way to charge your phone and other mobile devices. USB really is a remarkable invention with such an enormous range of practical uses. Now, when I first started using a computer as a digital music downloading and playback device years ago, I simply plugged powered speakers into the headphone jack, and the internal sound processor took care of all that digital to analog business. And only after reading articles about the benefits of using a separate DAC, about, let's say, 4 years ago, I think, I began using the USB port of my Mac to connect it to an external DAC. It did not take me long to appreciate the audible improvement. In case you are a novice about using a computer as a music playback device, the most common way currently is to connect a digital to analog converter, or DAC, to it via the USB port. Yes, I know that Bluetooth is easier and doesn't need cables, but a discerning audio enthusiast will detect a noticeable loss in fidelity when using Bluetooth. It may be satisfactory for the general public, but not for us. You have a few options here. You can try something like an AudioQuest Dragonfly, which is a small USB-powered DAC, and you can plug headphones directly into it, or use a mini audio jack to RCA adapter cable to connect it to a separate amplifier and speakers. There's no USB cable required. You can also employ a USB to coaxial SPDIF converter. This M2 Tech Hi-Face 2 plugs into the USB socket of a computer, and on the other end, there is a coaxial RCA jack output. You can use an RCA cable to connect it to the coaxial input on a DAC. Once again, no USB cable is needed. But perhaps the easiest way is to simply use a USB cable and connect directly from your computer to the USB input of the DAC. Now, which USB cable did I use? I used whatever was handy, most likely a generic cable that had been sitting in a spare cable box. The same cable that I'd been probably using to connect something like an external hard drive for quite a while. And you know, it worked, and I thought it sounded pretty good. Eventually, I read posts by enthusiasts claiming that there are special USB cables designed for audio, and that they improve the sound of their systems. But you know, I never really pursued it for my own system, as I suppose I was swayed by things I read by numerous cable naysayers out there. Fast forward a couple of years, and when I attended the Florida Audio Expo back in February 2022, I started walking around between the hotel conference rooms, and I noticed a DH Labs table in the corridor, and I decided to stop and introduce myself to a fellow there named Greg. I explained that I had a YouTube channel and that I'm considering making a video about audio cables. Greg told me that he would be interested in providing me with a sample of a DH Labs Silversonic cable to try, and he went through some boxes and pulled out a cable, and he said, "How about this USB cable?" And I'm like, okay, sure, not what I was expecting, but I accept the challenge, and so we exchanged contact details. Interestingly, DH Labs are located in Alachua, Florida, not far from Gainesville, and only maybe a couple hours from me. And they've been making all manner of audio cables for like 30 years now, so obviously they're not a fly-by-night operation. Many people have an issue with fancy USB cables, or even spending more than $10 on one. You've probably heard it a million times. It's all zeros and ones. As long as those zeros and ones are arriving at your DAC or any other device intact, what difference does it make? And there are many individuals who claim they know what they're talking about. They poo-poo audio-specific USB cables, and they do make convincing points about why USB doesn't need special cables. It's a total waste of time and money. But then on the other hand, there are many other individuals who confidently state that purchasing hi-fi oriented USB cables is a worthwhile investment, and that there is an audible difference in USB cables. Who to believe? Obviously, things like inductance, resistance, and impedance can be evaluated using sophisticated measuring instruments, but can the subtle and complex differences in sound quality be measured using these devices? Logic, or something resembling logic, tells me that since it's one of the first conduits to carry that audio signal to the DAC, that it should be of decent quality inside and out. Firstly, it should be flexible, durable, and the proper length is actually as short as possible. Secondly, it should not add any noise to the signal, so it must be properly shielded and insulated from RF or any other spurious external interference. The integrity of the signal has to be carefully preserved during its incredibly brief journey from computer to DAC. I've been using this DH Labs USB cable. It's called the Silversonic maximum bandwidth USB cable, and it's about 1 meter in length, I figure, and it's got this kind of heavy-duty woven jacket with this attractive white stripe woven through it. Looks like it probably has kind of gold-plated ends there. And it works fine. I've got no problems with it at all. It's right length. It works great. But I'm wondering, does it sound better than something like virtually a free kind of cable you get with some kind of device, peripheral? It's worth nothing, really. It's 50 cents, $1, who knows? Does it sound better than this? Some people say it doesn't make any difference. This works just as well as a more expensive one. Now this is basically free. The DH Labs sells for this length, I believe, about $80. Or does it? I'm also going to compare it to a Belkin cable that I probably bought on Amazon for $10 a while back, and I've been using this as my audio cable for a while in my system to connect my DAC and computer. I told my friend Ross that I'm making a video about USB cables, and he said, and you might remember Ross, he's been in a couple of my previous videos. He's an audio guy, lives right across the street, great guy, and he said, hey, I've got a really interesting USB cable you might want to include in your video. And he brought this over. Here's the box. It says it's called Mad Scientist Audio, New Zealand. So that's kind of exotic. But these are $400. And They're much thicker and kind of stiff, and woven jacket on it, and it looks kind of DIY. The end bits here, it's kind of like a shrink tubing here, and it's actually like a loose thread. So yeah, maybe that's their charm. They look kind of rough, not as, you know, not as slick as the it's finished as the cheaper DH Labs cable. It's a bit thicker and chunkier there at the end. So I'm going to do a little cable shootout here on my desktop system. I got my Mac Mini, I've got my SMSL DAC, the SU9N, and I think I'm going to use headphones, so I'm going to use this SMSL inexpensive headphone amplifier. I believe it's the HO100, and my Sennheiser HD650s. I haven't got the acoustics in this room sorted out. It's a bit echoey, so I'm not going to do a lot of testing with the Celestion speakers. I'm going to do most of my evaluation with headphones. The Mad Scientist website claims that their cable is different and better than the other cables, firstly because the Blackmagic cable employs an asymmetrical data path rather than a symmetrical one, and it has 4 different types of cable screening, not just one, to reduce potential noise from external sources. Sounds good. Now, they do make claims of improved sound quality, such as improved lyric intelligibility and easy strain-free listening. They also include a couple of customer testimonials that give the Blackmagic cable very high praise indeed. The DH Labs Silver Sonics maximum bandwidth cable, they say, has silver-coated OFHC copper conductors. It's insulated with a low-density gas-injected dielectric and 100% of shield coverage. They make no claims regarding sound quality improvements, nothing about vocal intelligibility, larger soundstage, or being strain-free. The description on their website emphasizes quality, precision, preservation, control, and uniformity. I looked up the price of the Belkin, and it's currently $5.99, and their website cites it as durable, double-shielded, and 100% compliant with current USB specifications. What else would you need, right? Great. And all I can say about the cheap USB cable is that it's a USB cable. It functions okay, but it did sort of get stuck in the DAC socket in the back and required a bit extra effort to extract it. Now, to me, the Mad Scientist Blackmagic had the best high-frequency presentation, as it just had a tad more audible detail. It was smooth, but somewhat thick and meaty in the mids. And it had a good, strong, tight, deep bass. Plenty of soundstage, and it was very enjoyable to listen with. The DH Labs cable had a splashy, articulate, high-frequency presentation. It was smooth, and it had textured mid-range. The low frequencies were dynamic and articulate. It didn't go quite as deep as the Mad Scientist or even the Belkin, but there was plenty of air and space between the instruments, the sound was integrated, and all the nuances of the music were presented. And it perhaps achieved about 90% of what I got with the Mad Scientist Blackmagic cable. While listening with the Belkin cable, I could definitely hear an emphasized boost in the bass and lower mids, and it was kind of rolled off at the top. They had an exaggerated, congested sound, and there wasn't much air or space between the instruments. The music didn't seem as relaxed or flow as well as with the other pricier cables. It was okay, not great, and if it was all I had, it would be fine. I could live with it. Now, with the cheap no-name cable, I was really surprised by just how lackluster the music sounded with this cable connected. The high frequencies were rolled off, but what was there was kind of harsh, and there was very little air or sparkle. The mid-range had some glare at the top end, and it was thick and closed in lower down. And the vocals sounded kind of rough than they did with the other cables. And the low frequencies were thick and inarticulate, rather thudding low bass notes. I became fatigued after only a few minutes of listening. Truthfully, I wasn't really expecting much or any differences between the cheapest USB cable and the $400 model. I can't explain a reason why, but I was actually able to glean differences. Now, I rotated out each cable 3 times and described my impressions in detailed notes as I listened to a selection of test music tracks. And I have no idea if you will experience anything like what I did. Now, under the circumstances, I was not able to arrange blind A/B listening conditions, and I did not use any scientific measuring devices. Does that mean my conclusions are meaningless? No, perhaps, but all I know is that I had some fun and arrived at this tentative conclusion. I was able to discern a sonic difference between USB cables. Am I crazy, deluded, deaf, or senile? Geez, I certainly hope not. If you are streaming music from a computer with an external DAC and you're satisfied with the performance of your generic USB cable that you've been using for years, then don't pay any attention to my forthcoming suggestion. Now, if you're fairly happy with your current setup, but are curious about trying out a new USB cable that was designed with better quality components that could lead to a more pleasing sonic presentation of your music, then the DH Lab Silversonics USB cable would make a great entry point, in my opinion. In my estimation, it gives you most of what the Mad Scientist cable brings for only 1/5 of the price. Now, you may believe this is all BS, or you may believe that it's valid. You know, it doesn't really matter. I'm not looking to argue with anyone. Remember, this stuff is supposed to be fun, so please don't get up on your high horse and feel compelled to light fires. Anyway, check out my Instagram at myown.devices to get updates and follow my crazy hi-fi antics. Thank you.